Good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and call the work session to order. Ted, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. We'll go ahead and go through the agenda. Next month, I want to just bring up that we will have a speaker, Dan Everhart with the State Historic Preservation Office will be here to talk about the Secretary of Interior Standards with the Commission. So that'll be a good opportunity for you to hear what he has to say and ask him some tough questions about what you guys deal with all the time. So that'll be good. We'll try to get that started at 5:15 so we can get as much time as possible as well. Also wanted to let the commission know that this will be my last hearing. I'm moving out of the state, so somebody else will be doing the hearings from now on. So I'll be moving to just be closer to family, Washington State. So just want to let you guys know that. So and so we can go through the agenda now. We just have 4 items. Item number 1, DRH 21-348 is a certificate request to demolish a garage and construct a single-family residential structure with attached garage on the property. We have not heard from any of the neighbors or the public on this one. The applicant agrees with the staff conditions of approval, so this can be on the consent agenda.
Any objections to item number 1 being on consent?
No.
Awesome.
Item number 2 is DRH 21-350. This is a certificate request to demolish a garage and construct an accessory dwelling unit. The parking will be on site and uncovered. Similarly, this one has received no comments from the neighborhood or the neighborhood association. Applicant agrees with the conditions of approval, and so this could be on consent as well.
Any objections for item number 2?
None here.
Awesome.
Item number 3, DRH 21-357. This one you may recognize was a new construction project you heard a couple of months ago to construct a single-family structure and detached garage and ADU on a substandard corner lot. The applicant at that time was requesting access to their garage from the side street entrance. Staff did have a condition of approval that access be taken from the alley. And the commission upheld that condition of approval. The applicant is coming back to the commission specifically just to request that alley access, and they have some reasonings behind that, which they'll explain. So we will be hearing that one. And then item number 4 is a zoning ordinance amendment that we are bringing through. This will be a recommendation by the Historic Commission, final approval by City Council. This ordinance, the intent of this ordinance is to have language inside our historic code that allows staff to address illegal, unpermitted work in the historic districts. So right now, we don't really have those tools in our historic code. So if somebody screws up or does something intentionally, really it's all left up to code enforcement and our legal department. So planning doesn't really have a huge role in that except advisory. So what this does is allow our planning director to implement some penalties, just depending. And of course, it's a case-by-case issue. If it's somebody removes a tree without a permit or installs the wrong windows, those things can be taken care of relatively easily. But you start escalating into, a house was demolished or a roof was removed or something more onerous was done, we can address that now on a different level, and even implement a time delay, require them to come to the commission with a report. So it does give the planning staff some tools in the historic code to address those issues. The only comments we've heard on this one were what's in, those are just some emails back and forth with the Neighborhood Association and Preservation Idaho. And they've all been aware of this and think it's a great start to our processes along this line. So this one, we've heard no other comment on this either. So this one could certainly be on consent as well.
Any objections?
I have a question,
Yeah, no.
and I don't know if this is for now or if it's for in the meeting, but the in that recommendation, it mentions the separate part of code for penalties, and it's under a different code. So that's something different. Is that, maybe you can
Yeah.
help clarify with that? Is that also being looked at? Is that part of, is this step one of maybe multiple things?
Well, we do have, in our code, we do have the city has the ability to implement a fine on, people who violate the code, but it's limited to $1,000 fine. So that might be the other section you're talking about.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that was also being addressed
Yeah.
at the city level to update that or change that.
No,
or
I think that's
further that.
limited. I believe that's limited by state law. So the city doesn't have a lot of flexibility there. If our attorney wants to add to that, maybe.
Yeah, I'd be happy to add. There's no plan right now to change that penalty provision. As Mr. Venegas said, the LUPA kind of limits the penalties, like the monetary penalties that a city can impose. What this proposed amendment does is just give the planning team a little more teeth and kind of more procedures for historic preservation violations to go through. That's the idea behind it. And there's no planned revision to that sanction penalty.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any objections to that being put on consent?
We have comments about it. Should we wait till the hearing or should we,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
like, if we have comments about the proposed amendment, should we wait till the hearing? What's the action of the commission on the amendment?
Yeah, so the commission can hear it if you have comments that from a commission standpoint that you want to change it, or if you have other comments on the language, you can certainly do that. It would need to be polled and heard for that.
Okay, I'd like to hear it then.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Is that, you want to hear that? Okay.
We will go ahead and hear items number 3 and 4 then. Does anyone have any questions?
I do, Madam Chair, and it's for item 3. Shoot, I had it written down. I'll ask during the hearing because I can't remember what the question was.
Sounds great. Any other questions for Ted? Okay. Ted, if you don't have anything further, we can go ahead and call the work session. Or was there something else on the? Nope.
Nope, that's it.
Okay, great. We'll go ahead and call the work session to an end, and we'll reconvene at 6. is the 27th of September 2021, and this is the scheduled time and place for the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. I'm Chairperson Montoto, and I now call the meeting to order. Victoria, would you please call the roll?
Koski,
Here.
Maroney,
Here.
Malloy,
Here.
Pape,
Here.
Montoto.
Here.
Kintai.
Here.
6 present, 2 absent.
Thank you. Have all commission members had a chance to review the minutes from the August 30th, 2021 meeting? Does anyone have any comments or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, I will now take a motion on the August 30th, 2021 minutes. Anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I will move to approve the meeting minutes from last month.
Thank you, Commissioner Pape. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Victoria, would you please call the roll?
Koski,
Aye.
Maroney,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Kintai.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. We have one possible item for the consent agenda this evening, and that is item number 2, DRH 21-00350, Joe Levitch at 1405 East Washington Street. Does the commission have any questions on this matter? Is the applicant present?
Yes, I am present.
Perfect. Are you in agreement with the recommended conditions of approval?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. Ted, was there any written opposition to this matter?
Madam Chair, there was not.
Thank you. Is there anyone present tonight wishing to testify against this matter? Seeing none, and based on the representation of the applicant and lack of opposition, item DRH 21-00350 will be placed on the consent agenda. I move that the consent agenda and all items on the consent agenda be approved subject to the findings, conclusions, and conditions of approval agreed upon for this application. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, I think
Sorry. Go ahead.
either one, either Commissioner Kintai or, okay. And Victoria, would you please call the roll?
Koski,
Aye.
Maroney,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Kintai.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Perfect. Moving on, we are going to be hearing item number 1 because we do have someone signed up to testify. And that is item number 1, DRH 21-00348, Shannon Stoger at 2411 West Heron Street. Ted, can we please have the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The item before you is a request to demolish an existing garage on a property and to construct a single-family residential structure with an attached garage. It's in the expanded North End Historic District. The property is non-contributing in the district. This is an aerial of the property. As you can see, the alley runs along the west side, and the existing garage is kind of difficult to see, but it's in this area here. It's an unusually shaped lot. Usually we see rectangular lots, but this one is very kind of a large square. And this is the site plan. As you can see, access to the attached garage will be taken, excuse me, off of the alley, directly off the alley. Project is proposed to meet setbacks and lot coverage requirements. These are elevations of the new house. As you can see, it's kind of a 1.5 to partial 2-story structure with dormers along the front. This would be the garage section here with a small dormer. And these are the side elevations. This would be the area facing the alley to the west. Excuse me. It is a larger structure as explained in the staff report. However, the applicant has done a pretty good job through the design to break up the massing. This structure certainly doesn't try to mimic anything in the historic district necessarily. I don't think it would be mistaken as a historic structure. Again, the lot is about, I think, 80 feet wide. So it is fairly wide for the neighborhood. But again, through modulation and design, the applicant has broken up some of that massing so that it doesn't come across as massive. These are some of the neighboring properties. Excuse me. And there are Kitty Corner on Heron and 24th is also another 2-story structure. With the conditions in the staff report, staff recommends approval of DRH 21-348.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ted. Any questions? Okay, great. Is the applicant present?
Yes, we're here.
Hi, if you could state your name and address for the record, you have 20 minutes.
This is Shannon Stoger and my husband, Rich. We currently live at 1312 North 19th Street as we build our new home. I think Ted covered our project very well. The proposal includes removing the existing garage and building a new home. Our new home is 1.5 stories designed to fit the unique lot while trying to maintain the character and charm of the north end. As the proposal outlines, it will have all of the requirements of the historical district, including wood windows, smooth cement siding, brick accents. We will have a 2-car garage with the side access from the alley. We have done a landscape plan and have consulted with an arborist. One of the concerns I know with the North End Neighborhood Association was what is going to happen to the beautiful tree in front of our property. And we have consulted with an arborist, and they feel like they can trim it and maintain the character of the tree and make sure that it will not be a hazard for anybody. We have tried to get to know our neighbors and have taken into consideration our future neighbors into the design. As we've designed it and we got their feedback, we accommodated privacy concerns that if you notice on the back side, we don't have any dormers on the back side of the house. It's all skylights, so we are not intruding in privacy for the people behind us. I think the house, Ted covered it pretty well. We have designed a front porch to add some dimension to the project. And then there will be, the garage sits back a little bit from the front of the house. So again, there's dimension there to try and make it pleasable to the eye as you're looking at the house from the street. And that's all we have. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Perfect. Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you so much. Is the Registered Neighborhood Association here to testify?
Hi, good evening. I'm here.
Hi, Kate. You could state your name and address for the record, please, and you have 20 minutes.
Sure, thank you. This is Kate Henwood at 1116 North 12th Street. So as we do as often as possible, we made a site visit with the plans in hand and think that this design, particularly incorporation of the attached garage and the front porch, look really nice and would fit in well on this block. As the applicant mentioned during that visit, we observed that there is a beautiful and massive tree in the right of way that does extend over the lot. So while some trimming would surely be necessary, we wanted to be sure that the tree itself would remain happily and healthily in place. So we did exchange communication with Mr. Stoger, who assured us that that was important to them as well, and that they were working with an arborist to preserve it, which is wonderful. We had also discussed with them our preference for permeable paving, and we're delighted to hear that that is already incorporated into their plan. So we are pleased to say that Nina supports this application.
Thank you so much. We do have someone signed up to testify, Mr. Klinger, if you would like to come forward.
David Klinger, 1404 North 24th Street, an adjacent neighbor around the corner. And I'm here tonight to support this application and to welcome the applicant to our neighborhood. The proposed project's lot coverage, however, for a historic district is perilously close to the 35% allowable maximum. It must also meet design review criteria to conform to our neighboring properties. This proposal does involve demolition of an existing garage, one that through lack of upkeep was gradually allowed to fall into disrepair, and now yet another north end demolition. Those facts aside, I'm here to support this application. But I think that any new demolition approved by this commission has to include hard questions about what becomes of any salvageable materials. As you'll recall, I appeared before this commission on May 24th on the appeal of an administrative approval of a proposed demolition and home remodel at 1402 North 24th Street next door to me. That proposed garage demolition still awaits the required variance. The home remodel, originally described to neighbors as simply the cutting of a few new doors and windows, has, however, turned into something far greater, a whole house renovation down to the studs and the subfloors. This summer, I've watched as dumpster load after dumpster load of salvageable materials have gone straight to the landfill. Not just broken drywall and busted 2x4s, but porcelain bathroom fixtures, oak flooring, chandeliers, working late model kitchen appliances. And as you see here, the stack of antique solid core wooden doors, such needless waste. How do I know they've gone to the landfill? The contractor, Ogata Construction, told me. As I salvaged this valuable solid wood antique repurposable closet door. Why didn't such materials go to Second Chance or Habitat Restore instead of the dump? Well, they said nobody wants this stuff. The contractor told me that, and besides, they can't be bothered. Our North End Historic District is being torn down and deconstructed every day as we speak, as your own commission agendas attest. Boise's demolition ordinance is weak and fraught with loopholes. It's basically a record-keeping tally of accelerating demo waste. There are no standards for home remodels, and demolitions of garages and utility buildings under 200 square feet are totally exempt.
Time.
Here, in hearings like this one,
I'd like
is
to,
where you need to start asking questions every time a demolition comes before you.
I would like to allow additional time if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm finishing. I just simply think that when we pat ourselves on the back for being a green, sustainable city, we have to take a look at the reality of what is happening every day in the North End Historic District. And I think in hearings like this, whenever a demolition comes before you, you have to ask tough questions about the consequences of any demo and where this material is going. It's filling up our landfill. I've been a victim of it. I've watched it this summer, and here's one example. Thank you very much. I support the application.
Thank you, Mr. Klinger. I appreciate your time. Were there any other members of the public wishing to testify this evening? It doesn't appear so. If the applicant would like, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. While I certainly appreciate Mr. Klinger's comments and his concern for the environment and for the where our materials will go. I will tell you though that the example that he used on the house that's being gutted is a very different story than what is on our property that we're removing. The garage is in very poor condition, is showing signs of rot, electrical issues. It's very outdated and in our opinion is a fire hazard. And so while I do respect his opinions and certainly understand the concern, I would say that we don't have appliances or lighting fixtures that are any sort of quality that could be resalvaged or repurposed in another at another place. That's all we have.
Thank you so much. With that, I will go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing, and we'll consider a motion or discussion if there's any.
Madam Chair, I'll just open up some discussion. I just want to thank Mr. Klinger for his comments today. And while he does support this motion, I think we do need to listen to those and consider those in the future. So I just want to thank him for his comments today. That's all I have.
Beautiful. Any other comments or points of discussion for this application?
Sure. I'd like to thank Mr. Klinger also for his comments on what goes to the dumpster, and just a reminder that the standards say to repair rather than replace. So to prevent things going into the dumpster, we should be looking at having applicants repair over replace.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Would anyone like to make a motion on this application?
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve DRH 21-00348 based on the conditions in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, Commissioner Maroney, I think was the second. Beautiful. Victoria, will you please call the roll?
Koski,
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Pape.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Kintai.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. The next item we're going to hear this evening is item number 3, DRH 21-00357, Elizabeth. I don't want to butcher this last name. Cuckritz, thank you. I'm so sorry. At 2124 North Harrison Boulevard. Ted, can we please have the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. This is a request to modify a previous approval to allow street access instead of alley access to a detached garage in the Harrison Boulevard Historic District, and the property is non-contributing. It's a new construction project. You may remember this project a couple of months ago. This is a vacant lot and a new single-family structure with a detached garage and ADU were proposed here. At that time, the applicant proposed access to the garage directly from Dora Street, which is the side street running along the north side. This is what was requested and what is being requested tonight. So the garage will sit back here, and then access would be taken again from Dora Street. And the reason staff recommended that access be taken from the alley is because this is a substandard lot, does fall under our substandard lot ordinance. And so it is in our code that access, when an alley is available, that access should be taken from the alley. This is just elevations of the garage and ADU, just to kind of give you a reminder. These were already approved elevations. No changes proposed. So the code and guidelines, the guidelines do recommend that garages are alley loaded. And again, the substandard lot ordinance states that if alley access is available, all access shall be taken from the alley. That being said, it is in code as well that the Historic Commission can override provisions of the substandard lot ordinance if it serves the historic district. You know, the Harrison Boulevard Historic District does have many corner lots throughout the district that do in fact take access from the street. So it wouldn't be an unusual design for the district. This is a more broad aerial of the area, kind of showing some of these properties, corner lot properties that do have street access and don't take direct access from the alley. So there is some pattern precedents throughout the district that may justify the Historic Commission allowing such access. However, staff takes a conservative approach and especially on issues with code. And we do recommend that access still be taken from the alley. And so we recommend denial of DRH 21-00357. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Are there any questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and hear from the applicant. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 20 minutes.
Elizabeth Kekaretz for the applicant 601 Bannock Street. I am here on behalf of Mr. Zanger, who was fortunate to purchase the last buildable lot on Harrison Boulevard. Am I allowed to take down my mask when I'm talking a little bit?
I don't know what the rule is on that.
Okay.
No, it doesn't seem like that's allowed.
Okay, because I can't wear glasses then. All right. So we are here today. He was here about 3 or 4 months ago in front of you, or his architect was, and did receive approval for this building on this last lot here. At the time, there was some confusion about, if you were to revisit the video at the end, there was confusion amongst a lot of different people sort of as to what was approved or not approved. And it turned out there was not much discussion on the garage at the end. And it was just approved with the condition that the access be approved off of the alley. Since that time, we've talked to staff, and originally we thought that we were going to be looking at doing a variance for this property in order to obtain this approval. But after we received all the paperwork, filled it out, we talked to staff again, and we ended up here before you asking for the modification of the previously approved condition. If you can start the.
Yeah, I have it up. We just need to get it up
Oh,
on
you
the
do.
screen.
Oh, right, there we go. Okay, so we're just simply asking for a modification of the certificate of appropriateness. You can see, as Ted pointed out, this is the diagram of what we're requesting. Let me show the second one. This is pulling it in a little bit closer to have a better understanding of just where things stand, how it would fit into the overall street and the lot there. Because what he's really looking for is just to be able to have a fully functional garage. And because this is a substandard lot, garage access is supposed to be taken off of alleys. However, you do have the ability to modify the regulations as appropriate in order to issue a certificate of appropriateness. There's also a provision in there that if this wasn't in a historic district, you would also be able to obtain a waiver through the Design Review Commission for this. So there's sort of two ways to go about doing it. And here what he's really looking for is obtaining that fully functional garage that fits in with the rest of Harrison Boulevard. We understand that most of the lots in the rest of the north end, they all obtain access off of their garages. But also everyone knows that many of those people end up parking on the streets and just creating more traffic congestion because it is so difficult to get in and out of those narrow alleys and garages. If you go to the next slide. This is consistent with the Boise City guidelines for residential historic districts. The purpose of the Harrison Boulevard district is in part to assure that new building will be in scale and congruous in character with the district. Here, the house has been approved. It is in the right scale. It looks great. It's going to be a great addition. And access from Dora is, in fact, congruous with what has happened in this district overall. 48 of the 53 corner lots receive access from their side streets. That is the vast majority. We're also not worried about setting a precedent here by you guys, because I know that you'll regularly have people come back and say, hey, I saw that you approved this here. Now, can you please approve it for me? You're not going to have that issue here because this is the last lot. There's nowhere else to build on Harrison Boulevard. And so you're really looking at the last opportunity for this to even be an issue before you. Also, one of the things that you regularly look at is the historic access. And from here, you can see that, and that's when there was still a fence there, but coming across this property, it was regularly just driven across right there. There's never been going around and coming into this property from the back. It's always really just been right from the side, right there. Also, not looking at and expanding this beyond the substandard lot, there are looking at other lots and just to see that in the greater scheme that this sort of thing is allowed, is that street access is allowed when there's existing curb cut on a corner lot, or you find that it's not detrimental to the function and appearance of the affected block coverage. Here, the entire block is essentially a curb cut. If you were to look at this as it's depicted in these pictures, it's just an old semi-filled with weed dirt lot that just slopes directly into the street. There's nothing here at all. So given that you just have driven straight across it in the past, that's all that he's really looking at doing today. And finally, there are some additional considerations. First, because he did believe that he was going to have to go about the variance process, Mr. Zenger went out and he received from the neighbors, all neighbors within 300 feet, filled out the form to sign that they approved granting this variance. And at the time, he did have to receive a variance for a 5-foot setback. So these were actually used in a different case. But now they also approved the garage ingress from Dora instead of the alley. There was also a question about whether he needed the garage setback from rear property. So that's included on here as well. Turns out I didn't need a variance for that either. So I'd like just to submit these.
Please, thank you. Do we have stickers? The exhibition stickers. Thank you so much.
And no neighbor has objected. And in fact, the neighbor behind reached out and said she would actually prefer the parking. And of course, she said, like so many people, she would submit a letter or a note or something. And, you know, the people that approve rarely show up. But she did say that she would prefer that this access also be off of Dora Street. We were in contact with Nina. And I don't know, I guess Kate is on the phone. I don't know what they finally decided on this. But she did have some questions. And one of the things that Mr. Zenger is proposing in order to make this seem more congruous with a side street is to put fencing along his side. He was already planning on doing that. And he'd like to have a really nice sliding fence right along his garage, right along the sidewalk. Nina raised the issue Kate did, of then having cars backing up onto the street that's more blind. And so Mr. Zenger is absolutely open to whatever sort of modifications would need to be made there, whether it's a slatted fence, a lower fence, a fence that ends sooner, but just to help keep that appearance of just having a long side fence across there. And then finally, the power pole placement is, he understands, I mean, there are power poles throughout the north end, but in this case, that power pole is a mere 16 feet in from the edge, which is less than the length of the standard camper van that you now see all over the north end, which makes it really hard to be able to, you can see that red dot, come in and make that tight turn into the parking area, into the parking lot, into his driveway, because also many of the north end lots, what they have historically done is they have their garage, but then next to their garage, they have a gravel area or they have another paved lot. So that way they can get in and out and they have more space to make that 15 or 20 point turn that we all know you need to get into these garages. And in this case, he's not able to do that because of the location of this power pole. And so for those reasons, and this problem is then compounded by the fact that the neighbors built their fence right up to, if not over, the very edge of the property line. And when I've walked around the north end and the alleys, many of the fences are still set in like a foot or even a little bit. And so there's just more space to get in and out, whether or not that's part of the actual alley or not. This is just a really, really tight space. And so it's just really, it's really hard to get in and out of. And the concern is that we're just going to, without this approval, have another garage that's really not particularly usable for anything but storage. And then Mr. Zenger is parking on the street like so many other people with his cars and his trailer and his trucks and everything else, when there is a real opportunity that is entirely congruous with the Harrison district to allow him to have that access into his driveway, into his property. So in closing, we are simply requesting approval of this modification. He doesn't want to have to park on Harrison. He doesn't want all of these issues. The access is impeded by the neighbor's fence and the utility pole. Every neighbor within 300 feet approves of this request. It is entirely consistent with the Harrison Boulevard plan. It does not set a negative precedent. And the majority of other homes in this neighborhood in the Harrison Boulevard district do obtain side street access. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Ms. Cuckritz? Okay, thank you so much. Is Kate still on? Perfect.
I am. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is Kate Henwood, 1116 North 12th Street. So yes, the last time this application came before the commission, our position was that we preferred the driveway be accessed from the alley, both for aesthetic and safety reasons. However, we do agree that the guidelines for the Harrison Historic District differ from those of the North End Historic District, and that street access for corner lots is allowed in certain instances. So in reviewing the updated packet, we appreciated that the applicant planned to install a fence to reduce the visual impact of the driveway, but that of course did still leave the issue of safety, as this would necessitate a car having to back out across the sidewalk with an additional impediment to the driver's line of sight. However, we were able to discuss our concerns with the applicant via his attorney, Ms. Kuckritz, and we were happy to hear that he's open to a revised fence construction that addresses this issue. We also suggested that the driveway be constructed with permeable paving, and it sounds as though Mr. Zanger is amenable to that as well. So at this time, Nina would like to offer our support of this application with the condition that the fence design takes pedestrian safety into consideration and that the driveway is made from permeable materials. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Are there any members of the public wishing to testify this evening? It does not appear so. And if the applicant would like, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, or you can yield. It's up to you.
Yes, we agree to permeable papers.
Fantastic. Okay, and with that, I will go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing, and we'll consider a motion or discussion, whichever comes first. Okay, I suppose I'll offer my thoughts. I have absolutely no problem with this application. I think that this is one of those situations where we as a commission, can look at a situation independently and see that it makes sense. I think that placement of the power pole really concerns me, especially with how nasty alleys can get in the winter. I would not want to be backing in and out of that when, the plows haven't come through in 5 days. So I personally think that moving the access for the driveway makes sense. And so I will be voting in support of this modification. But I would love to hear my fellow commissioners' thoughts.
Madam Chair?
Please, Commissioner Koski.
So being that code, let's see what does it state in the report? Staff report says that it's clear that when an alley is available, vehicle access to the property shall be taken from the alley. It's clearly available. There might be some work that might need to be done. For instance, moving a pole, which is done and can be done, although costly. When you're working on a project, I think that's something that's not impeding the ability to load from the alley. And being that it is quite available per the code, I struggle voting in approval of this, and I would be more likely to deny it. If there was some hardship or other reason that made it impossible to load from the alley, then I think that'd be a different discussion, but this is just a desire, not a need. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. Does anyone have anything to add?
I'll just add something.
Sure.
So we've had these discussions in the past about removing curb cuts, adding curb cuts, and as these neighborhoods developed, they evolved. So originally, not too many people had cars, or if they had cars, they did park them off the alley. But as the times changed, we added curb cuts, we added different access to the home. So adding this access off the street, I think, is perfectly reasonable and actually fits the historic character of the neighborhood.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Malloy. Would anyone else like to offer thoughts or potentially provide a motion?
Okay, I will motion to approve DRH 21-00357 with the condition that they use permeable paving.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Kintai. Victoria, will you please call the roll?
Koski,
Nay.
Maroney,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Kintai.
Aye.
Motion carries 5 in favor, 1 opposed.
Thank you so much. And finally, we have item number 4. This is ZOA 21-00003. the City of Boise, and this is an amendment to the Development Code regarding specific procedures, Section 11-03-04, to include new language addressing unpermitted work in historic districts. Ted, I will turn it to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. So this is an ordinance that is intended to help address illegal work being done in the historic districts. As you know, we've had some issues over the last year and a half to 2 years with illegal work being done and the inability of the planning division to really do any kind of enforcement. We haven't had that written into our code. We rely on code enforcement and our legal team to kind of take that on. And so the desire was, and with support and direction from the mayor and city council, to implement some language into our historic preservation code that would allow the planning division to actually have some enforcement responsibility when it comes to work being done in the district. So as you can see on this slide, it's to address illegal or unpermitted work in the historic districts, determine whether the issue can be easily resolved or mitigated through a planning process. So that's just, if it's a minor violation, of course, like I said, removing a tree, maybe they installed a vinyl window that can be easily replaced, stuff like that, and can be easily resolved through the planning process or the appeals process, possibly, and may not require, a premature alterations report or to come, 180-day delay. So, just the determination up front of what kind of violation has occurred. Can it be easily resolved, or is it something like a demolition? Maybe the roof was removed, something more significant that we need to be able to address as a planning department. So resolution and the planning, our planning director, has the ability to require what's called the premature alterations report, that report would identify the violations and recommend rehabilitative measures. And then the planning director may implement up to 180-day delay on the project until resolved. Part of that 180-day delay would be putting together that report and bringing that report and the item to the Historic Preservation Commission for the commission's adopting of that report or accepting of that report, or alteration, changing, modifying the report, or denial of the report. And so the HPC would review and make a decision based on the findings in that report, and then that decision could be appealed to city council as well. So it's essentially giving staff a mechanism to implement a delay. And it was kind of determined, in our code, we do have a fine, $1,000 fine for when somebody does something wrong. Again, the planning staff has no control over when or how that fine is implemented. But $1,000 fine, I think we all agreed on, isn't going to deter somebody from maybe purposefully doing something to a property, but it's just not enough of a deterrent. And so really time, we decided, was a big deterrent. And we've heard that from, contractors as well, that time is the big issue here, which goes back to that potential up to 180-day delay on the project. So staff recommends the commission move ZOA 21-3 forward to city council with a recommendation of approval. So this would go forward with your recommendation to council. I think it'll be heard sometime in November in front of city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ted?
Yeah, I have a question. So some of the recommendations from Preservation Idaho, and I believe it was Ina, suggested about putting a sign in the yard if these acts were to occur, to let the public know. Is that something that can be put into the ordinance.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Malloy, yes. And I might have to confirm with Josh. I thought when a stop work order was placed on a property that there was a sign on the property. Do you know if that's the case? Yeah, so it is a small notice sign that's put onto the property. It's not like a large sign that's readily noticeable, but this is kind of managed through the building department. They're the ones that place the stop work order on the property at the request of staff. But it is something we can certainly address as we move forward as a recommendation to place something more significant on the property, if that is what the commission would like as a recommendation to City Council.
Okay, and then my second question / concern is something I think Ina also echoed, was that the planning director may waive the requirement of a report and hearing, which worries me if some planning director had undue pressure from an outside source like a governor's son or somebody influential, because we know that happens. It's not unheard of. So I'm just concerned that we're giving one person absolute power over the process, which is more of a democratic process versus having one person be able to just wave their hand and allow something to happen. And it's something we won't see, which makes me very uncomfortable.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner Malloy. And I think the intent of that provision of allowing the director to waive some of that is just so that not every single violation requires the report and has to come in front of the Historic Preservation Commission. So I think the intent there is that minor violations would get waived, something that if they come back and they want to mitigate, they removed a tree without an approval, or they put up the wrong window in or something like that they're willing to mitigate through our planning process. It may not require something come back before the Historic Preservation Commission. That's certainly comments, commission comments we can bring forward if there's any recommendation of how that, if the commission of how that decision would be made outside of a planning director decision, that would be helpful as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess to kind of provoke that question, that if there were a report for a minor situation like that, and I would assume to happen frequently on a level that we're not familiar with, do we as a commission want to be hearing all of those individual reports on top of everything else? I guess that was my first thought. And if we do, what does that look like for us in terms of our, I guess, overall commitments to the commission? Because sometimes I feel like, we can be here till midnight. And if we're hearing minor reports on, not insignificant, but lots of little infractions, that slightly concerns me, but that's just my initial thought. So I'd love to hear others.
Madam Chair, I got a comment on that. While it could come across, I think, as Commissioner Brown said, kind of alarming to put maybe someone in a position that could be influenced from outside and we not have anything to say about it. I also believe that we need to empower the people that work for us and work for the city and trust that system and trust the process. And I think we have good people working here at the city, and I think they make great decisions. And yeah, we don't want to see everything.
I sure don't.
Yeah. So I believe that. While, yeah, a little bit of concern, I believe also that we need to put faith in that system, and I'm okay with it.
Fantastic. So I guess should we have an additional discussion on any additional verbiage we want to have added to this amendment? And Ted, I'm honestly not even sure. Is this a full hearing process or is this just between the commission and staff?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, it is a hearing,
Okay, great.
a public hearing. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, then I guess let's hold our thoughts and follow through with the remainder of the hearing.
I believe, Madam Chair, do we need a motion to approve this?
We will, yeah. But do I have to like ask for public testimony? And yeah, so there's
Okay.
additional, yeah, perfect. Okay. Was that staff's presentation or was that you as the applicant, which I guess staff is the applicant? Sorry, this feels really convoluted. I'm like not sure what the
So-
procedure looks like.
So Madam Chair, the staff, the city,
Is the applicant.
staff's representing the city. The city is-
Fantastic.
city is
Okay,
the
great.
applicant. Yeah.
Are any registered neighborhood associations here to testify?
I'm still here. Thanks, Madam Chairwoman. Yeah, so this is Kate Henwood, 1116 North 12th Street, on behalf of Nina. So we are one of the referenced neighborhood associations who have raised concerns about work having been done in our historic district without appropriate permitting. And then the subsequent lack of measures in place to address these, often really unfortunate and sometimes irreversible actions. So we are very pleased that the city has heard us and think that the delay of work and an investigation is fair and reasonable. And while I do appreciate Ted's explanation and fully acknowledge that there are likely many appropriate use cases, I do think it's worth echoing the concern Commissioner Malloy raised about this being at a single person's discretion rather than being overseen by a democratic process. But overall, we just want to give our thanks to the city for proposing this amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Hunwood. Are there any other neighborhood associations here to testify? Doesn't appear so. Are there any members of the public wishing to testify this evening? It also does not appear so. Ted, would you like additional time?
Madam Chair, no.
Okay, great. Are there any final questions for Ted? Okay, with that, I will close the public portion of the hearing and think we should discuss a little bit. If anyone would like to offer thoughts.
Madam Chair, I'll speak up. I think a couple of good points were brought up earlier. I would be in approval of what we've got going on here with this amendment to code. And I think the staff and Ted also addressed the desire to have something posted on the lot for a stop work order. It sounds like there's a posting that's not unlike public meeting postings I could put on for meetings, things that come in front of us on a regular basis. So I agree.
I've seen one before. They're red, aren't they? And they're like 5x7 or 8x10 or something like that. And it's underneath the
Permit or the
permit.
posting.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Kosky. Would anyone else like to offer thoughts?
I'm just gonna say that I'm very uncomfortable with one person having the right to waive something. It's something that Nina said, I'm also saying, so I don't know what the solution to that is, if that's just a monthly report to us of how many things have been done and we just look it over, or what, but that's my concern.
I actually think that's a great idea. I wouldn't mind having that reported in just one kind of cumulative report. I think it'd be nice to know. And then that way, if we see problems kind of continuing to happen over time, then we can address it. But yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea.
Is that the kind of report that we could have and like just move it to the consent agenda or something? Just
I think so.
we look it over before.
Like the minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, actually. So would we like to add that into any amendments we're making to the
Madam Chair,
amendment?
just a question for clarification. Are you asking for the commission to get a report on things that
Or waived?
staff has waived? So it's after the case, not for approval,
Correct.
just for report of what's going on. And I guess maybe that would be a question for Ted and staff, if that's something that even needs to be written in this ordinance or not. I think what we're asked, what's being asked of is a tally or report of anything that's come up, just so we can keep
A
track,
regular work session.
right?
Yes.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, in talking to Josh, we could just have a regular work session item, maybe that we bring in front of the commission that is a sort of work session report for the commission that details the previous month's activities or unpermitted activities or stuff that the director has waived or not required the delay and on. So
I think
that's something we
great.
could put into as we write the memo on this to city council, we can put that in as a recommendation from the commission, if you like, as well as the larger posting.
I think that's great. Are my fellow commissioners in agreement that that's something we'd like to see? I also wonder if it's possible to strongly encourage those who have violated or show up on the report for having made violations to attend that work session so that they can see or hear what other things have potentially gone wrong to hopefully prevent things from going wrong in the future. I think that would be ideal, but
I think I would let legal address that.
I mean, and not like you must attend, like hey, we really strongly encourage you come to this type of situation. At least it's on their radar.
Okay.
Are there any additional comments?
Madam Chair, I think when and maybe we can have legal help in the back there, but I think currently, if we want to have something brought up in a work session, we can ask, and it can be brought up, including, code violations that may have been observed and we want to know status of, and those kind of things can be talked about. I don't know that that needs to be written in the ordinance. So I think the amendment to the code that we're voting on, I don't believe we need to state all of those things. If we can access them through a work session, I don't know that needs to be written in the code personally, but maybe our legal can comment on that.
Madam Chair, Commission, we can add, your recommendation can include whatever you guys wish to see council approve or deny. That's totally up to you guys. Whether forcing someone's appearance at a work session, I'd have to look into that. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I would just point out that you also have, I think in a lot of these situations, you will have the opportunity to address whoever made the violation. For instance, if someone cuts down a tree before a certificate of appropriateness has been issued, they're going to have to seek a certificate of appropriateness still after the fact. So you'll still be able to see that applicant and make your opinions known on the record. So whether we need to, or whether you would like to see all those things put into the ordinance is up to you, but you will still have the opportunity to be heard on, the kind of recourse and consequences that there should be.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yeah, it did. I'm just trying not to bog down the rewriting of the amendment and the code with too many things. That's all. I think it's well written, and in my opinion, I'm in support of it written as it's written. So
Beautiful, thank you. Would anyone like to add any additional discussion, or would someone like to take a whack at a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Sure.
My motion is going to be that we approve ZOA 21-00003 amendment to the code as written in the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Maroney. Victoria, will you please call the roll?
Husky,
Aye.
Maroney,
Aye.
Malloy,
Nay.
Pape,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Kintai.
Aye.
Motion carries 5 in favor, 1 opposed.
Okay, and that concludes our hearing for this evening, everyone. Thank you so much. And Ted, thank you for all you have done for the commission. We will see you all next month.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Ted. We'll miss you.